So we are joined here by my father figure, not Father Ted, Father Ed.
You were on an episode of Father Ted.
Yeah. Just mention that at the end.
Sorry, I was fucking freaking out about that. Sorry, mate. Yeah.
So we're with Ed Byrne, who I saw as a 10-year-old, and then we've come full circle. Was inspired to become a stand-up comedian because of it, and he's luckily given us his time. Very appreciative. It's been awesome, real good chat. And really great comedy advice and cool stories.
And yeah, I've only just realised as I've stood up and seen myself in the mirror over there just how fucking ridiculous my hair is. I did nobody say anything.
Oh, I don't know, because
I've sat here on camera this whole time with this weird hat hair thing going on.
So now he's not gonna collab with them.
He needs the panto makeup, and we'll get him sorted.
So what did we chat about? We talked about your understanding of Instagram.
Yeah, my complete lack of knowledge when it comes to the digital world and social media, unless it's Twitter.
Yeah.
We talked about your complete lack of understanding of the concept of pantomime,
Yep.
which is a very UK-based thing.
Yeah.
We talked about edgy comedy.
Yep.
Because we have to talk about edgy comedy because we're three blokes on a podcast.
And we got a hike in there. We got some physical activity.
Yeah, we talked about some of my failures.
Yeah.
Meeting Shane Warne.
This was
very briefly.
This was a very good podcast, especially for open mic comedians and people trying to come up in the scene. Lot of good advice.
Great advice.
I took a lot out of this episode, so thank you so much for coming on.
I seem to remember at one point talking about how useless my advice is. That's your takeaway. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that we did. And this episode is brought to you by Raunchy. Raunchy, the beer that is actually good. Yeah. It's bloody good. Do we have to shout out some Patreons?
Yeah, we got some quick Patreon shout outs. So
we had 2 or 3 more come on this week.
Yeah.
That we haven't shouted out, sorry.
So big shout out to Reece Shea, Caitlin Brown, and I think James Jones rejoined.
Yes.
So
thanks
guys.
So
thanks,
much.
legends. If you want to jump on the Patreon, there's 19 bonus episodes up there still. So we've got 4 from Exmouth with
19?
Squirly. Yep. Lots of bonus content, discount codes, and free tickets to some comedy shows. And always good stuff for you.
Yeah.
So, cheers. Let's get hard.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host,
Daniel Delby.
And Cameron Brand.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
And then just, Cool, perfect. Easy.
Any questions before we start?
Yeah, man.
Good to go?
Fucking go.
All right, sick.
Fucking have it.
Cool. So we're here with Ed Byrne, who was a father figure to me.
Unbeknownst to him.
Thank you for not asking me for money yet. Waiting for that to fucking happen.
So, the backstory goes, my mum used to be engaged to a comedian. A comedian. And we took...
A comedian I don't even know.
Yeah. And that's what most people say, even if they do. Yeah. And then we flew over when I was 10 to Melbourne Comedy Fest and spent the day with, a couple of days with you and Brendan Burns.
Yeah.
You took me around Luna Park because no one would, and you were the nicest dude. You went on the rides with me. You fucking showed me everything.
I mean, really, it's not a good rep. It's like comedian who sometimes appears on the BBC, only person to volunteer to take 10-year-olds on rides around Luna Park.
As long as you can
what excuse do I have? It's not like I can say, I really wanted to go to Luna Park. Like, it's not a good amusement park. But a 10-year-old bats their eyelids at me and we're going.
That was the perfect summation, the comedian who sometimes appears on BBC, because Delby said, we can get him on, and I was like, he's pretty certain I've seen him on Top Gear and a few of those sorts of BBC.
I did. I popped up on Top Gear myself, and Dara Breen did the cars in stars in a reasonably fast car thing. Yeah. I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
Right. And Dara is a much bigger comic than I in both physical stature and in terms of...
Is that the bus driver, the host of Mock the Week?
The host of Mock the Week, yes, who looks like the mega bus man.
Yep.
Yeah. And we've been friends for a very long time. But yeah, The one thing I have over him is that I went faster than him around the Top Gear
How
track.
good's that? Well,
Fuck him.
He's going to be the bus driver. Yeah, that was what I realised how big you'd gone since we were 10. Since I was 10, I was at the show, and I don't know even if you know this bit anymore. I'll always remember it because as a 10-year-old, you even shouted me out. You didn't use my name, but you shouted me out in the crowd because you were doing a bit about Soggy Biscuit. And then you go, I'm not going to mention the details of this because there's a 10-year-old boy in the crowd. And that's always burnt into my skull.
I do remember that, but it was to do with Freudian slips. It was the fact that I was describing the term, the game. And a guy said, "Oh, you know that game, Eat the Biscuit." And I, "Oh, that's not the point of the game."
Awesome. Yeah, that makes so much more sense as an adult now.
Why was so your mum was one of the those adults that I look at in disgust that brings their kids to a comedy show when I have to tell.
Yeah, well, also
jokes
because
about-
I was like, I want to watch Ed, like because I'd
Yeah.
known him. I was like, I want to see
Yeah,
him.
fair enough. Yeah.
And then I think it was the same time that Chris Franklin released the Bloke song.
Oh, yeah.
So then in my first Raw competition over here, he was the MC, and that was the final. It was like another little collision of worlds.
It's coming full circle.
Yeah. I didn't meet any comedians when I was 10. You're basically like you're just one step away from Nepo baby stage. It's like sounds like doors were opened for you.
Yeah.
It is nice though when you run into people in your career who you admired from when you were young. That is
true.
absolutely. I think people. It's one of the most common questions you get asked as a comedian is like, when did you make it, or what was your big break?
Yeah.
And there isn't really like any particular moments that kick the door open, but the most memorable bits is when you meet people that you used to watch on TV, or that even that you just went to see live for the first time, when you then end up working with them and they treat you like peers.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like I remember hanging out with Ben Elton in Auckland was the first time I met him in '97, I think it was.
Yeah.
And even after the show, like it's a little show, and I just tried a couple of new bits. And they didn't work. And even talking to him afterwards, and he was going, "Yeah, it didn't work, did it?" But just being treated like a contemporary by Ben Elton was awesome, even if it was in the negative.
Yeah. Even like, and we just spoke about Wolfie. Wolfie talked about that with Jim Jeffries, and he went the total opposite. He tried to be a fucking arsehole to him. Instead of talking to him like a peer, he's like, "Nah, fuck him. I'm going to be better than Jim Jeffries." But yeah, getting on that sort of level.
Yeah, Jim Jeffries, he didn't know. Like, have you seen Amos Gill or worked with Amos Gill?
I believe so, no.
So Amos fought to have Wolfie open for Jim, and Jim was like, even the announcer guy goes, and then some other cunt, one of Amos's friends, is starting. Welcome him to the stage. Like, gave him the worst ever.
I'm going to burn this fucking place to the ground.
So, but yeah, it's really cool how it's fully come. Full circle, but
and then to be on shows like Graham Norton and sorts of things like that, and then leveling up and coming here on the Hard Yarns
podcast.
Now that's the point which you've made it. You have fucking made it. You're on the Yarns.
It's all downhill from here. There's nothing else to achieve.
Yeah.
I went to see Daniel Sloss last night in the fucking Perth Enorma Dome.
Yeah,
and
is that the RSC Arena? Is that where it was?
Was that the
big blue one?
The Riverside Theatre.
Oh
yeah.
And he was doing 2 nights there and stuff, and it's because he cites me as an inspiration and that kind of thing like that, and it's just. It's just
ticking
hard,
them off, mate.
Just hard to watch people just usurp you and everything. The funniest thing. So I had this YouTube news which I was trying to get off the ground. It never really went anywhere. I was basically going hill walking, going hiking with comedians. And it never, because it was just a big ask. It was a really big ask of comics, because everyone lives in London. No one's anywhere near the fucking hills. And to get them to go and do my hobby with me and be interviewed, it's a long day for no money. So.
And comedians aren't notorious for being the most sporting types.
No. But Daniel was very kind enough to do an episode.
Awesome.
And we did it. But the thing was, we took my car. We parked his car one end of the walk, and then we took my car, parked that at the other end of the walk, so we could do a nice long linear walk. And it was just funny, just interviewing him and him talking about like what we're talking about now, of the first time he saw me and being really honoured to work with me and all. And it was kind of I'll go as far as say hero worship, but he was being very, very
fanboy,
very fan. Yeah, it was nice. and then we get in my 7-year-old Jeep Renegade to drive back to his brand new Tesla Model X or whatever. It's like, yeah, great to meet your heroes, isn't it? And I told that story to my friend Glenn Wool, and he just went, well, at least you're not driving around in your dead sister-in-law's car. I went, fuck, all right.
Fuck. Yeah, there's the spoils of comedy. Well, that's like... even yesterday, we had a supercar driver on, and I gave him a lift back to the city, and I was like, hey, man, don't judge me. Like that.
That's a difficult thing
I'm
to
just
do.
going to follow the rules if that's all right, you know? So, but, yeah, that's fucking really cool, that hiking idea. Because you don't know anything about my co-host, but he does that shit for fun. So
hobby.
Is that something that...
Kevin Nealon does one, hiking with Kevin.
Yeah.
But it's much handier because in LA, there's hills like right there. And also celebrities like right there.
Yeah.
You know? So, and he knows them all, so he just takes them for a hike. And it's never really about the hike, it's just about the chat. Whereas I was trying to make this about the different hills as well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we don't really have hills here, and we don't have celebrities, so we're sort of fucked on every
not a great place to do it.
Yeah.
What sort of distance are you doing? So you've taken it up like as something you
I do it. Yeah, I do it in Scotland mainly.
Yeah,
and I just did a little tour around like little village halls in Scotland just so I could go and do hiking as well.
Well, so like you did shows, hiked from one show to the
I
other.
didn't hike from one to the other. I was late for one show because I went for a hike that day, and it just ended up being a lot longer and boggier and wetter, and it took me about an hour and a half longer than I thought it was going to take me.
Right.
And I was half an hour late to the I was about 20 minutes late to the show.
Fashionably late.
Yeah. But you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's a village hall. There's nothing else happening. What else would you be doing? You'd just be drinking more if I wasn't here on time.
And not to, this sounds terrible. Back in the day, obviously, it would have been harder to make it in the comedy scene. You don't have like the things that we have now with social media where you could just be an open micer and get some fucking clips that go viral and you start to get a following. You've got to work at your craft and you got a fucking gig. How does it even fucking start?
What I really love about being in the business as long as I have been now is that I've finally reached the point where people have stopped asking me for advice. Because my advice is fucking useless now. Like, it used to be, like, the most sound advice I used to give people was always like, whatever you do, don't make somewhere like the Comedy Store be your first port of call when you're doing an open spot.
Yeah.
Like, when you first do an open mic, wherever city you're in, don't go to the big comedy club in that city. Do the shitty, do the very low grade ones first.
Yeah.
Get fucking stage time, get polish. Don't go and do an audition, do an open mic slot at the big, whatever it is, whether it's the Glee Club in Birmingham or the Comedy Store in London or the Stand in whatever it is.
Yeah.
Don't go there first because you'll be shit.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later when you're good, they'll still remember when you were shit that time.
Yeah.
And
what are you talking about? I thought open micers were really good the first time.
But that advice has got
That's pretty good advice.
Gone though. I mean, it's just not the same now. Now the advice has got to be like, get your clips.
YouTube.
And I'm asking other people for advice now. I sat down with a fucking 31-year-old in Melbourne to just explain Instagram to him.
Well, that's how we work with TikTok.
If I tried to collaborate with you on a video from this clip, you'd be like, "What the fuck is that?"
I've noticed that people do that. Yeah. What's that? How do you do that?
Yeah. It's good because it boosts everybody. It's good for the algorithm.
I understand Twitter. That's all. And I'd been locked out of my account for months, literally months, because by a hacker. No, a hacker. I just got hacked. And they changed the email address on it, and I couldn't get back in.
What do they have to gain from that? A 7-year-old car? Or?
And they didn't even pretend to be me. They changed the fucking name on the thing to Bored Ape Yacht Club.
What?
You know, and tried to do NFT fucking shit. Spoofing or whatever, you know.
I wonder if that's
because they try and get the
They just saw that it was a 500,000 follower account, and they just use it to just spam people and try and fish them.
And you got it back.
I just got it back. Like
Shout out to
4
Elon,
days
baby.
ago.
Elon.
No, it was. It ended up being like I asked so many people. I was asking the agency that runs that that puts that does paid advertising for my promoters and things like that, and no one can get hold of anyone at Twitter on my behalf. It was one of the dads at my kid's school who's in IT for the NHS, but knows other IT bods who managed to track somebody down at Twitter to give me my account back. But my point is that I understand how Twitter works. That's the one that I've always done. I understand how retweet, but I don't understand. Where you can't just click a thing and then it comes up in your feed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or if you do that, then it looks like you posted it. Yeah. Now I look like I'm stealing content. I'm just...
No, but it's not stealing. If someone invites you to collab, then it's you share it and it's both of yours.
Right.
Yeah, it's like when you were looking after me when I was 10. Like I was your responsibility and Brendan's and Mum's. So
it's actually been very helpful for us. Like if we get a bigger, like a big name come on, for example, yourself, like we collab and it becomes your clip as well. Then everyone's like, oh, who's this Hard Yarns sort of podcast? Or if it's Delby doing a clip and he's like, oh, okay, I'm hanging out with Brad Pitt.
This is
collab with me. Everyone's like, fuck, you know.
This is going to be the next stage in my digital evolution. This is going to open doors for me now. And the next thing you know, I'll be fucking prowling the dark web like a ninja.
And the people who are watching this clip on your Instagram right now, he did it successfully.
You found it.
But Twitter's almost like the perfect avenue for comedy. Right? If you want to do like one-liners or like set up punches, that short form is pretty good.
That's where you used to set it up, like practice, soundboard your jokes, eh?
I did it on Facebook, but David Hughes, do you know David Hughes? Yeah, so he's a mate of ours, and he started doing stand-up. So he's got massive followers on Twitter, and that's perfect for his style as well. So
I've just been reading a book. It's not out yet, but there's a friend of mine called Adam Bloom who's written a book called The Perfect Punchline. Adam is a very forensic comedy writer. He's written for other people. He actually writes stuff. He actually does stuff for Banksy, believe it or not. He's really sad.
Right.
So he knows who Banksy is.
He does. He knows.
The conspiracy.
He's actually been paid in Banksy's sometimes. Like he's got original art from Banksy. Yeah.
Wow. Imagine that.
I don't even know if I'm supposed to reveal that. Banksy probably doesn't want people to know that he
collaborate.
uses writers for stuff. But he writes and he also invents magic tricks and things like that. So he's a really analytical brain. But he's written this book about comedy.
Yeah.
And he one of the points he makes in that book is that Twitter, when it started, when it was 140 characters, was an excellent training ground for for trimming all the fat. And just getting your wording exactly perfect for a joke.
Yeah. I was using Facebook statuses for that. I've gone off that now.
And like I was talking to Squirly about this before on the way up to Exmouth. I'm an open micer, I guess. No, I am an open micer, and I'm sort of trying to get into the scene a little bit. And I've got people like these guys to help me trim the fat. But
Ed's like, who the fuck are these guys?
But then Squirly made a good point. I need to do it myself as well. I need to learn the craft. It's got to be me.
Your time is. You have to put the time in.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just do shortcuts.
It's like
for the best.
It's like doing weights, you know? You can't get someone to do it for you. You got to do it yourself. Otherwise, you just,
But I think that there is a sniffiness with people who came up through the comedy circuit from doing like the open mic on the circuit, and then people who came in via podcasting, which is a whole new thing.
Yeah.
I got very annoyed. I think it was mainly during lockdown because a lot of celebrities started doing podcasts.
Yeah.
And a lot of podcasters started getting really fucking arsey about it.
Yeah.
They were like, bloody celebrities muscling into podcasting. And I'm like, the last time I played the Brighton Comedy Festival, I couldn't get the big room because there was a fucking podcast in it. Right? If you're going to be doing shows in our theatres, you can't complain about us doing your airwaves,
100%.
you know?
Yeah. And it's YouTubers as well now, like Luke Kidgel, who's got huge from YouTube and TikTok. They're doing theatres just from like building a following online. And even like some of the other, I won't mention any names, but like you see the YouTubers do a show, and as a comedian, you're like, this isn't comedy. This is your scene. And I mean, I'm not going to hate on them because they've found a niche and they're doing it, but it's completely different to what
I mean, there is something it is a different skill, and there is something to be said for, could you, maybe if that person had come up through the circuit, it would have knocked a lot of the edges off it, and it would have changed it, and maybe for the worse.
Yes.
Maybe, the kind of comedy that you come up with when you're just doing it and just putting it out there, and you're just finding your audience.
Yeah.
Is different to what it would have been otherwise, where you got to get up in front of people who don't otherwise like you and convince them to like you.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, that was the sort of I came through that. I came through what was in the 90s in London was almost a gladiatorial sort of, that being forged in a crucible sort of scene, where it felt very sort of us against the audience, and you bring that fucking grab by the balls, that kind of comedy is that kind of comedy, and then you have these other circuits that sort of came along later, where it was almost daring you to find it funny. Yeah. But out of that came some really interesting, really good comedy that was kind of had to be nurtured in that environment.
Yes.
And otherwise and it's more interesting. You can't do that at jonglers because they'll just fucking heckle you off.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of very interesting and very funny stuff that has to come from another way. So I guess, people who are coming through Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, that's it's nice that it exists.
And there's people like and there's always people trying to break boundaries. You look at like Andy Kaufman back in the day, like just completely. And I'm assuming a lot of people didn't find him fucking funny at all.
Yeah.
But it was the difference. He was able to create a name for himself by creating these characters. What was the Tony Clifton? Yeah, Tony Clifton and these sorts of characters. They broke him apart from that. And I don't know what the next change in comedy is, but there will be another.
Well, I'm not
evolution.
I'm not for the Nanettes and that sort of style. Like, I don't always think comedy needs to have a message, but it's almost like went through this
message
space where we have to have a fucking message, or I have to like identify as a green alien fucking dog person to make it. So I'm just like, if that works and they've got a audience for it, that's sick. But for me, like, I don't think you have to have this fucking deep underlying every single performance you do. I like that there's always something to be said, but
I get it. Well, I get annoyed by the idea, and I don't get annoyed by the comedians who do it, but I get annoyed by it seems to be an attitude in the press, where unless there's at least 5 minutes to show that's not funny, it's not a good show.
Yeah.
Like that actually, it feels like people come away from a show going, it was just an hour of jokes. Yeah. There's nothing else in this comedy show but humor. Yeah. 3 stars. Yeah.
That's so true.
I don't get that.
That's so
attitude.
true.
I see the value of a comedy show that has serious bits in it.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the angle that all comedy has to have a serious bit.
That's so fucking true. That is, you couldn't have framed it any better.
I mean, my personal favourites, I think the best stand-up special on Netflix in the last 10 years is Norm Macdonald's Hitler's Dog. Where there's barely even a segue between bits. He's just standing there just saying this funny shit. And
he was incredible.
The best.
Yeah. I'm just having a panic attack. We're recording sound. Everything's good.
Yeah, it's
sick. Have you found Melbourne comedy? Have you gigged in Melbourne much lately?
Not lately.
No, okay.
I mean, I was just there last week, but the only stuff I went to see, I did a package show when I arrived. But it was, I think I was on with anybody from Melbourne.
Yeah. Okay.
I went to see Ed Gamble's show.
Oh, cool.
Electric. That was great.
Awesome.
And again, just jokes.
Yeah.
Just jokes.
And it's good to hear that, like, you've been doing, how long have you been doing comedy?
It will be 30 years in November.
Yeah. Wow. So I met you like 4 years in.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it's good to hear that after 30 years, you're still going and seeing other comedians. You don't have that comedy fatigue.
I'm lonely. I got nothing else to do. And then I foolishly think they'll hang out with me afterwards, and they don't. They've got
I gotta go pick up
radio show to pre-record.
I gotta go pick up my daughter.
No, I love that I can go and see comedy and it still makes me laugh, and I'm not just second guessing and trying to think of lines and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Because it's hard to switch off.
Yes.
When you go and see comedians, it's hard not to go. I wonder where they're going to go, and then you're trying to remember. I should say to them after. What I think they should do.
Yeah.
But the last couple of shows I've seen have been are shows that the guys who've been doing them have been clearly touring them for some time, and there's nothing.
And what do you think the etiquette with that is? Because, like, even I think 8 years in and like 2 years in where I've decided to go full time. So I'm at the very start of my journey. But I'm living off it, which I think is fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I love giving people tags.
Yeah.
But I feel that like if they're like someone that's been doing comedy longer than me and I've seen their show, but I'm mates with them.
If you're mates with them, then I would say.
Or
no
like, I
problem
should
with
say
it at all.
like loose acquaintances with them.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you gigged with them a couple of times. What do you think the etiquette is? Like if someone like that's
I'll
2
take a
years in-
suggestion. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be insulted if somebody new made a suggestion. I get annoyed if it's just a fucking audience member. I had a weird one from an audience member. It's a new joke I'm doing. About I hate watching the tennis with my wife. Or could you watch like Wimbledon?
Yeah.
And there'll always be this moment where they pan to the royal box, and there'll be a comedian who's 10 times more successful than me is sitting in that royal box, and it's always like James Corden or Michael McIntyre or Jimmy Carr or some other guy with a really round face, or a slightly beaky, chinny guy. Anyway, and my wife will just be sitting there and she'll just be staring at me going, if you were just a bit funnier, we could be there right now. And I go, and in a way, maybe it's sweet. You know, maybe it's quite romantic that she thinks I'd still be with her if I had James Corden's money. And this woman came up to me after the show, and she was just like, I think you should say something different.
Oh my
I
God.
think you should say something like about how if she left, if you had James Corden's money and then she left you, that she'd like get half that money. Or something. I'm like, and I go, I just went, I think my way is funnier. and then she goes, yeah, but your way doesn't make you sound like a very nice person. It's not stand-up nicety.
Yeah.
It's not, that's not the
I'm
point
not a stand-up
of it.
guy. I'm a stand-up comic.
And I am someone who sometimes does think about how I come across. You know, it isn't just about being funny. And I do want to sort of like say what I genuinely think about a subject and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. That doesn't make you sound very nice.
Yeah, it's like-
Fucking, did you hear the laugh?
No shit.
That sounded nice to me.
But I feel that's so funny because she had the most pure intention, but she's been so Karenized, if that's even a word. Popes get canonized. 2023 you get Karenized. And she thinks she's doing you a favor, and she's just completely missed the whole fucking point.
I just think the idea of, like, because it's not like, it was just a bit ladsy or whatever, you know, but it's not like it's not like I suddenly dropped the N-word or something. The idea that you would get to the end, get to a punchline and I go, oh, no, I can't laugh at that. He does not come across like a pleasant individual when he said that.
Well, how do you deal with those sorts of stuff? Like, because that's the way comedy's evolving now. People are
The Karens and the cancel culture.
Yeah, and I don't think it's served a very great visual seeing obviously someone like Will Smith go up in the middle of fucking Oscars. That didn't help. Fucking go
Or
up and
even
whack
just seeing
someone.
James Corden after you hear how he treats everybody else in general.
Yeah,
Allegedly. But you might be friends with him.
I've met the guy once. That's another thing I talk about in my show is the fact that people sometimes just never admit when they're wrong. Sometimes you might think you're right about something, and like I met James Corden once. Seemed like a nice guy. I admit I could be wrong. You know, all evidence points to the contrary. I'm happy to be in the minority. He seemed all right to me, but I wasn't working for him. No, I don't know. Like I say again, I went to see Daniel Sloss last night, and he talked about it very coherently and succinctly about the whole, and he mirrored a lot of views I have on a lot of this idea that you can't say anything anymore. A lot of it is coming from people who are trying to run before they can walk.
Yeah.
Subjects in comedy like assault and racism and
all the funny
pedophilia,
shit,
whatever things like that. These are, as my friend Glenn Will said, these are the you know, the black diamond runs. You know, you got to do the nursery slopes first.
That's an awesome.
And I think a lot of people are coming along, having only been doing comedy a wet day, doing jokes about the difficult subjects and wondering why no one's laughing, and then blaming cancel culture for it or blaming political correctness. It's like, no, you're not good enough to handle the subject yet.
That's a great metaphor.
Fuck yeah.
That's a black diamond run when you're still on the fucking learning slope.
Yeah, and it's just... you've never been able to just say anything. I think people have this idea that you used to be able to say anything. I remember in the 90s watching comedians absolutely storm it, and then they'd pull out a joke about Princess Diana, and they'd have to walk off to the sound of their own footsteps.
Yeah, right.
A joke that worked before she died.
Yeah.
But then they suddenly go, oh, you know, I think it's been 6 months now. I think I'll try my Diana material. Yeah, no. And the audience just fucking turn on them.
Yeah.
And there's always been sort of hot button topics.
Yeah.
That are, you know, difficult to go near.
Transverse, yeah.
And it's a lot of the time, some people have this attitude that you should be able to say anything you like on stage.
Yeah.
That the stage is a sacred place, and you can say, and once you're on stage, once the audience is in there and they know what they're in for, that all rap should be off. I think that's a lazy way to approach comedy. I think that does comedy a disservice. The moment you say that, because then there's no such thing as edge. Like, if the reason why you enjoy an edgy comic is because they give you that laugh that another comic doesn't give. It's a different kind of laugh, like no, he did that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Now, if you say, well, you should be able to say anything, then that laugh can't exist.
That's
that
so true.
feeling of, oh, I can't believe he said that, or I can't believe she just came out with that, is gone.
Yeah.
So you have to accept that there is a line one can cross in order to feel that frisson of excitement when the comedian gets close to it.
Yeah, that's fucking brilliant, because the word edgy in itself means you're on the
They're
edge
on
of
an edge.
something,
Yeah.
and you're playing on the edge. If you can say anything, then there's no edge anymore.
Yeah.
You
So-
just go up and say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, so the idea of like starting a comedy night where, okay, the rule is that you're not allowed to complain and you're not allowed to be offended. And you go, well, that's fucking lazy on your part, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's changed my mind on that, because I used to think, but I've never thought you can just get up and say whatever. I've always been of the opinion that you should form a relationship with the audience. If they trust you, then you might be able to go towards that edge, and they know that they're there for comedy. So really, you leave your offenses at the door when it comes to shit like that woman does. But anything else, if you do go just like, you know, fuck the Jews, or like whatever the fucking Kanye would do, right? Then
Clip
it's
that
like,
bit.
then there's a bit
Collaborate,
of a different
Delby.
Because if you're allowed to say anything
And
on stage,
Kanye.
Yeah.
so yeah, I really I like that framework.
Yeah, I
of
mean,
thinking.
it's why you admire people like Doug Stanhope or Glenn Wool, or, you know, that you can take a something that's really quite a notion that's quite unpalatable and turn it into comedy is a difficult thing to do. And that's why, you know, in the same way as it can be very difficult to make politics funny, like that in itself is a real challenge. I always think political comedy is almost like the jazz of comedy, in that
You have to be talented.
you've got to be really good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't. And when it's bad, it's fucking unlistenable.
Yeah.
When political comedy is bad, it's just
Trump
awful.
and Biden have made it a lot easier for comedians in the last 8 years.
Yeah. But I think when somebody takes like a subject that is generally as dry as politics and manages to weave it into comedy, I think that's a tricky thing to do. I think that's trickier than taking an offensive subject and defanging it, or, you know.
It's also because my general rule is people are dumb. Like, as a general consensus, people are dumb. So if you're going to try and take a highbrow topic like politics, chances are 60% of the audience have no fucking idea what you're talking about anyway. Like left, right. I had a dude when I was watching Amos, the guy in the crowd was like, what the fuck's a right? Like, he didn't understand. So to try to talk about politics,
Who the fuck's Boris Yeltsin? Yeah, exactly.
but I saw Frankie Boyle at Edinburgh last year, and almost all of his stuff was political.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know about Scottish politics at all, or the UK politics. All I knew was a little bit about Brexit, but he made it relatable enough for me to understand. So I was like, oh, I'm the dumb person here. and it's still funny, which I thought was good.
Yeah, because going back to the thing about reviewers as well, sometimes you do have to, I won't say dumb it down, but it's like, I got criticized because my movie references were out of date, as she said. They weren't very current. The references I was making, the jokes I was making that referenced films. But I was like, I wrote a great John Wick 3 joke the day I saw John Wick 3.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell it on stage because the audience hadn't all seen John Wick 3.
That's courteous.
Well, they had, because it was the same as John Wick 1 and 2.
Well, my joke was, I went to see it with a guy called Patch Lambert in Wellington, And we just came out and going, how can there be that many hitmen in the world? How can there be... There isn't that much call for that industry that that many hit people can exist.
Yeah.
No wonder so many of them are homeless. I thought it was a very good joke.
Yeah.
But there's no point in me getting on stage that night and selling it because the people are there a lot of them homeless? Yeah, there's the whole Lawrence Fishburne holds up. Okay, it doesn't matter.
And then the lady comes up after. You don't sound like a very nice guy.
Yeah.
Calling him and homeless. It would have been better if they took half your stuff.
Instead, like I make a reference to Seven and I make a reference to the Memento and I make a reference to Mad Max Fury Road, but because everybody's seen them.
Yeah.
So it's a collective thing.
Speaking of which, have you seen John Wick 4?
I have not seen it yet. I am going to. In fact, I'm thinking just to almost turn it into a tradition. I'm thinking of waiting until I get to Wellington. And then go to see it there.
Yeah, it's a long movie, and it's pretty similar to the first three.
Really? It's not a major departure? John Wick doesn't become a Buddhist and get over his issues that way?
Nah.
He doesn't seek to
Enlightenment?
No?
Nah.
Does he kill somebody with a book?
Not this time.
Does he become a cat person?
He nearly gets some pussy, but it's
Does he become a cat person? Well, he kills somebody with their own cat.
Yeah.
So
Pussy galore.
Wellington, obviously a fucking long way from home. You must do a lot of travelling. And that's always been in my head. And I even having these conversations with trying to lean more into comedy, being away and on the road all the time, it must get pretty tiring and pretty.
Yeah. It's since I've had a family, it's less enjoyable. Has to be said.
As in leaving the family.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
you must really love them.
Genuinely, I'm quite fond of them. Before we had kids. My wife used to go everywhere with me. We would travel the world, and it was great. And it meant that, also it was just the two of us at home as well. So it meant that not everywhere kind of had to pay. So long as it was as long as we were staying in a nice place and there was fun stuff to do.
Yeah.
We would go everywhere, and we went together to there's some gigs in the French Alps. Where you stay in really basic accommodation, but they teach you to ski, and the money's not that good. But we just got to go, that kind of stuff.
Life experience.
Yeah, and so we go. We traveled around Australia and New Zealand together. And I think a classic example would be there's a beautiful town in New Zealand called Napier. Yeah. And it's this lovely Art Deco town, and it's really close to mountains. Yeah. And we went. We hiked in the mountains.
Sick.
I did the gig and all that. There's only 120 people there, but it didn't matter, nice hotel, etc.
Yeah.
Now, Napier can go fuck themselves because the last time I was there, I only got 200 people on a Saturday night where I can get twice that in Blenheim. So they don't make the list anymore. Now everywhere has to justify its existence. This is another night I am not tucking my kids into bed. This is another night in a hotel alone.
From that angle.
You've got to show up.
Yeah.
So that's the, and so now it doesn't feel like a working holiday anymore. It feels more like work in that way.
And it has to be worth it. Yeah.
And that's what I said this to Delby the other day, even with my daughter. I got separated last year, so I only get 50% of the time with my daughter. So I have to prioritize that 50% that I have. And I just got a message from a mate who's working on a movie over in Canada, asked us to go over there and help with some stuff over there on that. And usually that's something I jump at the opportunity. Yeah. The first thing that I think of is I've got a daughter.
What a loser.
But you got I would struggle to I'd feel bad just dumping my daughter on my ex-wife for 18 to 20 days, however long I got to go. But then also I'd miss the fuck out of her. And if it's not valuable enough for me to replace that time that I could get with her, it doesn't sound like much, 18 days, but for me, it's a lot. So I can see how that can...
Well, my kids are a little older now. They're 10 and 12, and they don't care as much that I'm around. So they are less interested in me being around. When they were small, they would miss me more.
Yeah.
And I remember having a Skype call with them, and my younger Magnus just going, "Daddy, can somebody else make the people laugh?"
Fuck.
But now they're just when you back another 3 weeks? Yeah, that's enough long, is it?
Yeah. Well, Scotty's 5, so probably about 5-6 years away from that.
I'm still trying to find my first girlfriend.
How old are you?
I'm 36. Just
Okay.
turned in
Right,
March.
yeah.
So I had my show's called 33 Years Single, the one that I bring around. I don't mention that I'm 36 now. But I got my first girlfriend at 33 for a couple of months. And then now I just can't change the show each year because it becomes more and more depressing, if I do a sequel every year. So I call it that. But I want to, next one's just called Lifeline.
Arj Barker had a great line when he was, years ago, he must have been in his 20s. He was like 24, 25. And he's going, and people tell me, Arj, you should settle down. You should get married. I'm going, I'm in my 20s and I'm in show business.
Yeah.
If things work out the way I hope, my wife hasn't even been born yet.
That's awesome.
That's a very good joke.
That's awesome. Where, speaking of which, like being in show business and finding a partner, where did you meet?
We met at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So she's Scottish or she was on?
She's English, but she was a publicist, working as a publicist.
Wow.
Yeah, I was always going to marry a comedy publicist.
Yeah.
That was always going to be the case.
Free
It's like,
publicity. Like
it was also just, they really make you feel better about yourself. You go, how was that? Well, just give me a quote for the poster.
Yeah.
5 stars.
That's great. So what, she came to a show or you just met out? And
No, we met. She was aware of who I was.
Yeah.
But no, it was Dara O'Brien introduced us.
Yeah,
She was working for a firm that was doing his publicity, and I asked him who she was, and
Nice. So Dara was your wig man.
Yeah, so he had to make a speech at the wedding because it was only
That's
only
awesome.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was.
Because
Yeah,
I'm a
I met her
marriage
in
celebrant as
2003.
well as a comedian.
What's
So
that?
I'm a marriage celebrant as well. Like, I'm married.
Oh,
people.
right, yeah.
So I love love. I love hearing those little stories and how people meet and that. So.
He loves love, but can't
Can't get
love.
it. Yeah. Where's home now? Are you like
We
London,
live in
Scotland?
Essex.
Essex.
So we live, an hour and a bit out of London.
Yeah,
I live.
You feature on their show every now and again?
No,
No?
I do not. I know people who've been on that show, but I
yeah.
don't. I've never.
I heard it's quality viewing.
I find the enhanced reality, is that what they call it? I find it a little hard to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only way is not Essex when it comes to TV shows.
I'm not big on any of those. I find
Yeah.
you kind of can see. I just find I can just see where someone's written that line for you.
Oh, yeah.
kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
In a way, said the guy from Mock the Week.
I went when I was. I love Mock the Week. I watched because we don't get it here, so I watch it all on YouTube. So again, seeing you pop up, I was like, oh, there's it. But I saw you on when I went to England when I was 18. I went just there to live for a bit because my family's from Middlesbrough, in Grangetown, which is like fucking. It's like the Ukraine
Right.
post-war. And you popped up on TV doing, I think, maybe the uncut ads or something. Uncut
Best
ads.
unseen ads or something.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
I was like,
That
what the
was one.
fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. And then you've done all these wicked shows that I froth. Like, I would love to be on Have You Been Paying Attention? No, not Have You Been Paying Would I Lie to You?
Oh yeah.
Like, what was that? What was that
I
like?
really enjoyed that. I only did it the once, and I really did enjoy that because that is the one where it's genuinely everything is spontaneous. Like
Yes.
every show you see, every panel show on TV,
Yeah.
there's a certain level of you're given info in advance.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of preparation involved.
Shout out David Hughes.
Yeah, he's a big help in that. Yeah, but what I like to you is the one where it's absolutely everything is just on the spot and in the moment, and it's
love it.
basically a parlor game.
Yeah.
On TV.
Yeah.
And that's Delby's bread and butter.
It's I fucking just froth anything improv off the cuff because I freestyle rap as part of my act. And,
Right.
and it's awesome. It sounds shit as a white Aussie guy that freestyle raps, but like using that off the cuff because Lee Mack for me, his wit and the pace that he gets a joke and turns it into something hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's obvious, but and if these sorts of movements don't give it away, he's definitely got a little bit of ADD going on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I got that. Yeah,
now he's going to be conscious of it.
I got that diagnosis last year. As I
did ya?
say on stage, I go, yeah, I got the diagnosis. I got the ADHD. Which, if you're a comedian, is a bit like being told you have skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you got to be careful how you say that. I've got the ADHD. But what's the? I've always wondered what's the mechanics behind it, because I won't ruin your one. If you want to share the story you told, and maybe Branch, you can guess if it's true or false. I can remind you of it.
Oh no, I had a story about the fact that I discovered a steak pie in my trousers once whilst on a train.
Yeah. Do you reckon that's true or false?
Well, the way he had to reach for memory. Oh, is that clever? Oh, I'll say false.
Would you want to ask him a question?
And you can ask him. Okay. What flavour was the steak?
See, for steak pies just come in steak pie flavour. There isn't.
No,
we don't have the range of pies you have over here.
No steak and mushroom. No. Okay.
No.
Or what, you think he's gone in his pants, realised he's got steak and just given it a taste?
Was it dried out?
It was fairly. Yeah. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like a terrible mess. I mean, the fact that it had been there from the time from before I got on the train, I guess.
That could also be a comedy review. It didn't feel like a terrible mess. They'd been there from before I got on the train.
Okay.
One more.
The pastry, was it all crumbled and did it fall all over your lap?
That's what all you're asking about is the pie itself. You don't want to know how it got there.
I don't think this is about whether or not you want to crack whether it's true. I feel like
I'm hungry.
Tell me more. Look on it. The pie wasn't. Was the pastry everywhere?
Oh,
Did you eat it?
That's a good Aussie accent.
Was it coming out of your travel legs? Did it get in your socks? Tell me you got in your socks.
What did it feel like?
I'm going to say it's a lie.
No, it was true.
Fuck.
It was a story from college.
Yeah.
I went to a party. I went to a party. I went back to a flat with some people, and I don't think I was even really invited. But I fell asleep on the couch, and somebody
Fell asleep in air quotes, or
I
shoved him.
passed out, whatever.
Yeah.
But somebody clearly had shoved a Scotch pie or steak pie into my pants while I slept. I didn't even notice until I got on the tube. Like, I walked to the tube and got on the tube, and it was like, what am I sitting on? And then I go,
That is fucking.
and what's mad is I straight away, that's how,
What is the
that's how
face?
student I was. It's like, I straight away just knew what had happened. So somebody's shoved a steak pie in my pants while I was asleep because I was drunk. That's what's happened there.
or you were too drunk and you're like, I'll save this for later.
I mean, it was maybe they hoped that I would think that I had shat myself.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
what it
I
is.
didn't even think that for a moment.
Yeah.
Did you realize when you were sitting on it, or did you get up? And
No,
was
it
like-
was while I was sitting. I was
So,
sitting
so
on the tube,
obviously
and
you're on a
that.
train. You didn't check while you're on. You didn't put your hands down your pants and come up with steak, because for people sitting
I think
around
I did,
you,
yeah. I think there wasn't that many people there.
Okay.
It was very much during the day. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
rush
yeah.
hour. But I kind of think I did reach in and I sort of went, it's not. I think that might be a steak pie or something. I think somebody's pranked me.
My cheeks hurt.
so his cheeks hurt as well. So the
Yeah,
mechanics.
I mean, it could have been worse. Like, it could have been, a curry.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. The mechanics of the show. This is what I've always wanted to know. The back workings of that. Do you tell the producers a bunch of stories?
Yeah. So they phone you up, and they ask you for facts about your life, and you give them a few things,
Yeah.
but then you don't know until you open the envelope.
Yeah.
Which one of those things is gonna come up, or indeed whether or not it's going to be something that you've given them or something they're giving you to pretend.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Like
The only thing about it at this point, though, is that when it's either Lee Mack or David Mitchell, you're like, well, obviously this is not true.
Yeah.
Because it would have come up before
Yeah.
if this was a fact.
Yeah. I always think that, right? But we've started doing something where we just get random topic generated, because I have my own theory that somewhere in the crevices of our brain, you'll hear a word and then your brain will go, oh, I remember a time when blah, 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 blah. So I think...
That's the ADD.
Yeah, but like you could say, like, I don't know, Crystal Rock, right? And then you go, oh, I remember the time I fucking went to buy a Crystal Rock here, or I was in Rockingham and someone tried to sell me Crystal Rock, like whatever it is. And you've got these stories that you've completely forgotten about. So I think like something
It's
like that,
possible
you
that
feel
there's
like it's
still
exhausted,
something that
but
they've
there
got.
could be something deep down there in the recesses of the mind.
I'd be very surprised if they've got any true stories left. It has to be said. Lee Mack has one of my favourite jokes about parenting in the world, which was just, it was a lovely, short, crisp one, which was, I used to think I wanted 3 children until I had 2. And now I realise I only want 1.
I love Lee Mack was when he phased back in the what was it, the sketch show?
The sketch show,
sketch show back in the day.
All the leaves are brown, all the leaves are brown. Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible. And then you'd see him on the galas, and he'd be always the one as you know, through high school and primary school, watching those sorts of gala shows. He'd be the one I'd be like, yes, he's on. I loved him. He was that good, palatable comedy. It was fun.
Yeah. And like stuff like Mock the Week, like I think that's pretty cool. You've been on there a bunch, hey? Like a stack of times. Is that, you were mentioning like there's a lot of preparation in that. When they put up the topic or the news article or the photo, are you shown before the show and you come up with it? Okay, cool. Yeah. And even like I've always...
I mean, most of the actual I mean, a lot of stuff does happen spontaneously. A lot of stuff you come up with in the moment. It absolutely does. But most of the really spontaneous stuff, the stuff that I look back on that I enjoyed the most was when you're sitting in the panel bit and discussing the news. And that's the bit that seems the most prepared.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes where you're really getting to fire off each other, where it turns into a conversation.
It's
and
the best.
in the later years, it became more fun, that bit, because in the early years of Mock the Week, it was very, you sharpen your elbows, and it was very difficult to make space for yourself. And it's like 6 dogs all fighting over one piece of meat, and everybody's rushing for the same joke, and people are you do the setup to a joke, and somebody else would come in with
fuck.
Where did you think I was going? You think I just brought that up so that you could? But it became in the latter years, it just got far more relaxed, I think, and became a bit more collegiate.
I couldn't imagine like one of your first appearances in that, like the pressure you'd feel to actually be on, make sure you're funny, whatever you contribute, and then the more experience, the more time you have in the scene, I guess you can do what you said and relax, and then it becomes more of a team game amongst the 6. But if you get someone on their first time, they're going to want to try and jump at the
I think one of my favourite shows that I ever did, there used to be a show on British TV called They Think It's All Over, and it was a sports panel show.
Awesome.
And I never went on it because I don't know anything about sports. It's just not in my wheelhouse. But it turned out it was the one show on TV that my dad watched.
Nice.
And
my boys made
it. I
it.
says, you know what? I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I did, and I actually really enjoyed it because it was one of those ones where everybody, it was back in the day when people got paid really well for being on the BBC.
Yeah.
And everybody on that show was a household name from being on that show.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to make it sound like they were being lazy, but they were famous and they were getting paid big bucks.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, if this young fella wants to be funny, on you go, mate.
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
And it was just really nice. It was and they were like, you'd make a joke and they would enjoy it. As far as they're concerned, you're making the show better. You're not getting paid nearly as much as they are, and you're just quite happy, So it was one of the most relaxed shows I've ever done. Yeah,
I feel like that would be similar to the front bar that we have here, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's good if you have no idea about sport, because you can come at it from a completely different angle and put your spin on it without having to feel the pressure of knowing.
You'd have to lean in.
sport.
You'd lean into that, wouldn't you? I don't know anything about sports and just
I was
play
actually
with that.
well. Do you know who I was on with? I was on with Shane Warne.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I could imagine people listening to this going, that can't go to me, Shane Warne.
That's exactly the point.
And he didn't care.
Yeah. It's funny how you don't care, because we could get like, a huge comic like Bill Burr could be on here, or Ed Byrne. And
I realised that you were unaware of what just a slight hint that was. I mean, a big comic could be on here like Bill Burr. I mean, thanks for being here, but a big comic could be on.
I mean, in terms of someone that comedian,
Yeah.
like I feel like Bill Burr's a comedian's comedian, and he's got into the mainstream now. But like people that don't watch comedy couldn't give a fuck. Whereas I'd be sitting there going, "Fuck, man, Bill Burr," or like you get that sort of, and the not giving a fuck is better for that person, I reckon.
Yeah, that is a curious thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? how many tickets you can sell and how massive you can be in an industry and still not be, you know, a household name. Whereas it used to be, you had to be a household name before you reached that many people that many people would then go and see you live.
Yeah.
It's I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in this job.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many avenues to reach people.
Yeah.
And there's such I think there's a bigger tradition of paying to go and see it live than there ever used to be.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think it only seems to be getting bigger, you know.
Yeah. And I've always found the phenomenon that, like, let's say an actor, an Adam Sandler or like a Brad Pitt, compared to Arj Barker, who is like massive, like for well known in Australia, does a lot of
who's
like
coming on the
shows.
podcast as well, just quite.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
And like he could be sitting in a cafe and people go, "Oh, there's Arj Barker."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Probably the same amount of fame as a Brad Pitt, like as in number of people that know him. And Brad Pitt could be sitting there, and it's a fucking completely like flock of seagulls.
It's interesting,
weird,
isn't
like
it?
comedy fame and acting fame is almost different.
I find the most awkward I ever feel is if I'm in an enclosed space like a train
Podcast
carriage,
studio.
like a train carriage, or even maybe in a quiet bar or something like that, and I get recognized by somebody while there are other people around who hear.
Yeah.
Because I'll know that the other people don't know who I am.
Yeah.
And somebody go, Are you Ed Byrne? I go, yeah. Oh my God. Because people who do know who you are think you're famous. They're impressed by you.
Yes.
And people are weird. People will see that someone else be impressed, and they will instantly fucking hate you.
Yeah,
They will
right.
sit there like, you're minding your own business,
Yeah.
and someone has recognized you, and a bystander will be like, who the fuck did he think?
Is this in England and Scotland and Ireland?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah. And now maybe that's kind of in my head. You know, but that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Because you do. I used to do a bit about this. I used to do a bit about. Sometimes people will. I've had people cross a room to tell me that they don't know who I am.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I've had people come up and go. Apparently on the TV, I've never heard of you.
Oh, what a wanker.
Yeah, and I've had that happen a lot.
Yeah.
And I always think, how busy must your day be?
Yeah.
If you go up to everyone you don't know to tell them that you don't know them, like you can't get down the street.
Yeah.
You just got to have empathy for people.
But
like that,
so I find that I like to think I'm a very personable individual when people come up and say hello or want a photo or anything like that. But when they do it in front of other people, I just get really awkward.
Yeah.
And especially like when then they get off the train and then I'm left and then with a lot of people looking at me like, you don't fire, I've never heard of you.
Yeah.
All I know is you smell of steak.
What's your go-to? Because it might be a comic thing. After I get off stage, I get mad social anxiety. I actually don't like that when people come up and go, "Oh, I don't know." Like, do you have a go-to? Like, thanks, or like, what do you do? Or do you feel like a pressure to be the same as you were? Like, I'm pretty much me on stage, but when I come off, people come and get in my space and they're like, "Oh, that was great," blah, blah, blah. But I'm just like, "Oh, thanks." And I usually just fuck off and leave.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're
I'm
just
just
like
weird.
Really,
Because when those
friendly about you.
because Delby's got with the Sunday singles, your clips go like bonkers, like millions and millions of views. So those two guys from Bahrain?
Yeah.
Came up to him after one of the shows. I've never seen you so weirded out. You're excited, but also like,
Well, I did try to finger my bum. So, yeah. But yeah. Well, I do this show, Sunday Singles, which has got a massive following on Insta, but it's like run by the Comedy Lounge. I think there's like 300,000 followers on it, but I would say 80 to 90% are from India, Bahrain, Sri Lanka, because it's voyeuristic because they can't have that dating thing and talk to chicks like that. So I get approached often by Bahrainian dudes or Indian dudes, and it fucking freaks me out. Like, I feel that the way you feel when people are going, "Who the fuck does he think he is?" I was in I did at Edinburgh last year. I had a Scottish guy come up. This is the only time I felt like a celeb because I'm in another country, and he's like, "Oh my God, are you Delby from Sunday Singles?" I was like, yeah, man. He goes, I fucking love you. This is like me meeting Tiger Woods. I'm like, what the fuck, bro?
That's fucked.
I
I can't even get my daughter to come to me after school. It's fucked. But yeah, no, I've started to notice that like people will message us and say, is that Delby from Sunday Singles on the Hard Yarns?
Yeah, it's weird.
Fucking Sunday Singles.
But
That's
I put all my
ticket.
credit down to Ed Byrne when I was 10 and seeing his show.
But it's nice nowadays, again, because you're not. I'm not. People aren't angry with me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel like people don't do that thing of. You know, I hate. I don't get the level of hate that you would if you're like really famous.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you don't like me, I'm quite easy to avoid. You just don't come to the show.
But I think all of your performances, anytime I've seen you on TV, you're always likable. It's not like you say shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure
Like
there's
you're
plenty of
likable.
people. I can understand because comedy is one of those. It is an incredibly subjective thing, and if you don't find somebody funny, they're actually very annoying.
I
You know.
agree with that for sure. Yes.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
I've just that fucking made me.
Yeah.
Who did you think of?
Oh,
That's right.
no.
It's not
Yeah.
someone
Oh
who's
my
got
god!
that's
There's
why,
so
you
many
know-
people, and you're just like, shut the fuck off.
And that's why if you're on things all the time, you know, then people will develop a
Fatigue.
dislike of you. I mean, James Corden is one of the most successful and one of the most hated men in show business.
That's incredible, dude.
People who don't like him really fucking don't like him.
Yeah.
You know, and so. I'm happy not to be
like
in
the
that
perfect
weird.
spot.
I'm just like if I'm not for you, that's fine. I'll be over here entertaining the people who do like me.
Yeah.
And it's fair exchange. I feel you know.
Is that
When you,
Gordon
I
and
think you would have
Ellen.
been, Gordon and Ellen,
Ellen,
and
yeah.
Eddie Maguire here.
Is he an
Australia.
asshole in person?
No, I'm saying
Oh, people
people
hate him,
like, they
yeah.
get. I love Eddie Maguire. I
Yeah,
think
so
he's
I've
great.
heard the opposite. Like Sammy Ritchie's our mate, Eddie Maguire's
Yeah.
apparently a fucking legend.
Yeah. But I'm saying like people,
Hate him.
Eddie everywhere.
Yeah.
And because of Collingwood.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But,
Poor Eddie.
well, the thing that probably made you most recognisable was your long hair. When did you cut that, and did you see a difference between being recognised and not being recognised? You used to have it like down past your shoulders.
Yeah,
hey?
yeah. I shaved it once just while I
wow.
was on tour. I did a tour around about 01, 02. I think it was 02. And I was kind of losing my mind. And the show wasn't great. And a lot of people, and my career was just on the slide. I had lost that new comedian smell.
Oh, yeah.
The phone wasn't really ringing. And I remember shaving, like I've just fucking did a Britney before Britney ever done it. You know? And I remember I remember shaving it once, and but then I just grew it back.
It's like Samson.
But I did a sitcom in Ireland, which was not popular.
Oh, yeah?
It was called The Cassidys, and I had my hair cut for that. And it was weird. I was just suddenly I was anonymous. I was it was even to close friends.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I was going up to people at the Edinburgh Fringe and standing right there and staring, and they're like, "Who's this weirdo?"
Yeah,
And not until I spoke, they were, "Oh my god!" The change,
Yeah.
it just made me unrecognizable. So it was quite,
Especially in
curious.
Scotland, a bit of train spotting, like shaved
Yeah.
head.
And I didn't used to wear glasses either, you know.
Right.
And then that became a thing. And now I think my own kids wouldn't recognize me without my glasses.
Yeah.
You know?
It is weird how, like, when someone like Superman. Now
Yeah.
I understand why Superman could just take his glasses off and no one knew who he was.
But
That makes so much sense.
Somebody tweeted me and said, "I've only just realized you're the same person as the guy who did the Alanis Morissette bit."
Called Ed
Like,
Byrne.
yeah, they kind of like, it was one of those things where it was somebody who, was probably about your age,
Yeah.
that remembered me and had a kind of like, I wonder whatever happened to that guy.
Yeah.
And knew who I was, this guy. Yeah. And then suddenly made a connection and went, oh, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
You know, so it feels like I've had two careers. I feel
Yeah.
like I came back as another person because I did. I had a kind of a slump around sort of early noughties, and then it was Mock the Week that
Yeah.
actually brought me. And do you know what it was? I was best man at Dara's wedding.
Yeah.
Right, because
That's your big break?
Mock the Week, yeah. Mock the Week is not one of those shows. The guy who booked it, the guy who produced it, Dan Patterson, he had his own thing. Like no one Dara recommended him. Could he get on? Like Dan would not listen to Dara or most other people. He had his own ideas and about who he booked. So it was never a nepotism thing.
Yeah.
that I was mates with Dara, so I got on the show. But I was mates with Dara, so I was best man at his wedding.
Yeah.
And I told the story about the time he brought the police to my house by accident.
Yeah.
He'd been at my house. We were drinking all night. He left the door open, and then hailed what he thought was a cab, and it was a police car. And so they stopped, and then they asked, and then he saw it was a police car. I said, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were a cab." And then they started asking him questions because he was dressed in a fucking dinner jacket. He was in evening, like tuxedo.
Oh my God.
And they said, "Where have you just come from?" There, and he'd left the door open. And they're like, "Okay, sir, I need to." And they went, "So is that's not your house?" He's like, "No, why is the door open?" So I'm in bed, and a fucking police officer comes into my room
Fucking hell.
and goes, "Is this your house?"
Yeah.
Do you
I'm
know
like,
this
"Well, you're
well-dressed
in-
man?
Is this your house? No, I'm a really lazy burglar. And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you know this man?" And there he is. He's just standing at the bottom of my stairs, just looking really sheepish. And I just said, "Yes, I know him," but I was so tempted to go, "I think I've seen him on Have I Got News for You?"
That's like the real life Little Red Riding Hood. Like just going in, testing the bed, falling asleep.
Because what I actually said in the best man speech was it was just something in that expression that made I couldn't prank him. I couldn't go, "No, I've never seen this man before in my life." But there was just something about this pleading look in his face, and I can only imagine it's the exact same look that made her say yes.
What was
I
he
did
wearing?
that, so I
Like a
told that
nice
story.
tux or like a dinner, like a
Yeah,
really well dressed?
he'd been doing a corporate gig. He'd been doing like an awards show that he.
Who breaks into a house dressed like that?
Exactly,
Huh?
the cat. Yeah. You have a gentleman burglar. Yeah. So I told that story, and then the producer of Monk the Week was at the wedding, and he goes, "You should come on the show and tell that story."
Oh my God. You're like, I've been doing comedy for 20 years.
Exactly. I'd been doing comedy, at least 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
I'd been nominated for awards.
Yeah.
I'd been on the Royal Variety Show. I'd done stuff.
Yeah.
And yet I'm still auditioning for some fucking panel
Comes down
show.
to who you know sometimes. Was that Dan Patterson? Is that name rings a bell? Was
He
Whose
also
Line Is It Anyway?
Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Which I love. My rap show's called Whose Rhyme.
Right, okay.
Based off that, but little plug. But you did mention you got an award. You won. Now I don't know how to pronounce it. Perrier.
Yeah, it used to be. I got nominated for the Perrier back in.
That's pretty cool.
'98. That was always the sort of. That was your high school diploma of stand up comedy. Really.
Yeah.
Every year there'd be a list of nominees for that,
Yeah.
and to be on that was just
pretty cool.
It was just a nice sort of. There we go.
Yeah.
Proper comic.
It's not even the winning it; it's just being nominated.
Just being nominated,
putting it
yeah.
out.
I was happy to just be nominated.
Yeah,
It's
because
weird
the
that we get
amount of
nominated.
comics that are at Edinburgh is like. I did my first one last year. I went and just checked it out. I'm going to go back. My show didn't get accepted this year, but I'm still going to go do as much gigs as I can.
What do you mean your show didn't get accepted?
Well, I applied for Free Fringe,
Okay.
and they just haven't got back to me.
All right. Okay.
So it must be. I think.
There's infinite
So
numbers of
many.
options that open to you at the festival.
Yeah. But just the sheer number of comics that converged there and then to be nominated is fucking awesome. Did it change much for you, or was it just like you could put that on the posters and the?
It was all part of a nice, steady, upward
Steady
trajectory.
Eddie.
Yeah. But at the time, I was a bigger name out here.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
when I first started coming to Australia in '96.
Yeah.
And I did Hey Hey It's Saturday.
Wow.
I did a spot on that, and it went really well.
Fuck yeah.
And then the second TV slot I did was on Midday with Kerry Ann.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my gosh!
What a step up.
And I said to the woman on the floor, I said, can you give me a wind up when I've done 4 minutes? Because I was new.
Yeah.
And I ended up, she never gave me a wind up. And I did the set I intended to do, and it went well.
Yeah.
And I went, and I'm thinking, I must have gotten nervous and gone too fast. So
Yeah.
I started digging into me. I carried on, and I just kept going. And apparently I had done 4 minutes, and then I didn't get the wind up, and I kept going until I went, how long have I done? And I was dying. I was fucking dying, and it turned out I did 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
The longest stand-up set anyone's ever done on daytime television, and only half.
Why
of it was
didn't they
funny.
wind you up? Was it
She
like
just didn't? She just didn't.
Well, she
do
just
it.
maybe she was enjoying it.
I don't think she. No one was. No one was. I don't know. I think she just thought I was gonna wrap it up or whatever, or she forgot that I asked.
Wow.
And
killing it to the midday mums as well.
Honestly, 4 minutes or so was grand.
Yeah.
And then I started going into bits and going, oh, this punchline's too filthy, it won't work. And then going into another bit and going, oh man, this isn't even my bit. Yeah. This is a bit because I was on with a guy called Nick Wiltie at the time. It was me, Nick Wiltie, and Phil Kay. We're doing a show together. And I suddenly realized, this isn't my bit. I'm doing the bit from another guy in the show.
Wow.
Because that's how panicked I was, you know, just searching for a clean bit.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the worst when you realize your punchline isn't going to suit where it is. I was doing a corporate and then as I got to the joke, I'm like, oh, I can't say this punchline. And then you got to try and make it clean as your shit. Like you can't, you can't drop a C-bomb at a fucking cancer fundraiser.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck.
Oh, that's
So it was sort of it was basically pre-internet as we know it.
Yeah.
Days. So you could come from say the UK, where I was based. You know, it was on the London scene, and you could do that thing of going, oh, he's big there.
Yeah.
And Australia had a very kind of, well, he's come all this way. You know, he can't be coming all this way just to die.
Yeah.
And so you could get on TV by just basically claiming to be a more successful comedian back home.
Awesome.
And no one, you'd literally have to phone up to check whether you're...
Have to buy an international phone card, put in the code.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember it was like coming out about 98, 99 and people saying, so how are things going back in the UK? I said, you know what? They're now going as well as I pretended it was when I was first coming here in 96.
That's amazing.
And has that translated to now as well? Like continuing on? Like, would it
I mean, now it's weird because I didn't come for a few years, and
neither did my ex-girlfriend.
And people just move on to the next thing quite quickly.
Yeah.
Did you do Melbourne?
I just did Melbourne. I just did a week though.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're just on the one show tonight, hey, in Perth? That's what I saw online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's that?
The
one?
Astor Theatre.
Astor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting. It's like I'm on tour in Australia at the same time as everybody else is on tour in Australia. It feels like we're all competing with each other. I understand the concept of a festival season and things like that, but the idea of, you know, I feel like we could maybe have spread ourselves out a bit throughout the year.
Even for the punters that want to go see, like you've only got if it's a weekend or whatever the time is. Yeah. Like I went before I did comedy when it was Fringe and stuff. I'd be like, oh, I want to see this person, but fuck, this one's on.
I'm kind of thinking to myself, would I maybe sell more tickets in Perth on a different night to Mark Watson and David O'Doherty also being on the same night in Perth?
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, because I would have when I was looking at shows in a Perth Comedy Festival and Fringe, I'd be like, this is my time of the year to go watch 4, 5, 6 different comedians over that sort of 3-4 months. And then I wouldn't do it for the rest of the year. So I guess some people use it as this is when I'm going to go do it and then I'll stop.
Like a block, what we call it schoolies. What's it called over there? Called Freshers Week?
Right.
Is that what it's called?
Right.
Yeah, people like that for comedy.
Yeah, I'd go, this is my time. This is where I'm going to go watch this comedian, this one. I'll go watch a gala. I'll pick some ones, and then I'd go, that's how I'd do it.
All those names you mentioned, they'd be your peers now, right? Like people that you... yeah, that's great. I think that's awesome. Who did you come up with that are now the householders? Like, you know how each sort of almost graduating year or like era.
Oh well, so the year then say that I got nominated for the Perrier. The guy who won it was Tommy Tiernan, who's he's an absolute household name in Ireland. And does well around the world. But he won it. Peter Kay, who is the biggest comic in Britain. Was nominated at the same time. Al Murray, the pub landlord, who's still very much going strong, and Sean Cullen, who used to be in Corky and the Juice Pigs. He would be the only one that hasn't gone on to be
things. Oh,
the rest of them all went on to be more successful. I'm really glad of Sean Cullen, and even he is incredibly successful in his own way. He kind of did a sidestep into musical theatre.
Yeah, cool. I saw you did I don't know if it was a musical or not, Aladdin, and you played Aladdin.
I did.
Is that cultural appropriation or?
Yeah.
What's that? What was that about?
And they did kind of paint me orange as well. Yeah, I mean, that was just TV makeup. Yes.
What was that? Because I read that and I was
the
like,
ITV
wow.
Christmas pantomime.
Right.
And it was the first year that they did it, and it was going to be a thing that they were going to do every year. Every year they were going to do a big pantomime, and there was people in it. Like there was really big names in it. But I think because at the time I had also just done a sitcom for ITV, which also died on its arse. So I was, and I was on the TV. I was doing stuff. I did the Royal Variety. I was not nobody, but I was still. It was surprising. I was a surprising choice. I thought to be the lead,
to be the brown Israeli, Arabic Aladdin.
But I mean, Griff Rhys-Jones was the emperor. Yeah, and they proper Fu Manchu'd him.
Really?
Well,
we all know Aladdin's a classic Christmas tale.
Yeah. Well, pantomime is a Christmas tradition in the UK, and it's always Puss in Boots. Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah. There's always these are the, and there's always you got the dame, and you got all these ingredients. It's a very it's a super British thing that people outside of the UK just really don't understand. Mm-hmm. So they were going to do it, and every year, every theatre. Like I fucking hate touring. In December because you're on the fucking panto set and the theater fucking the techs hate you because they're run ragged because it's panto season and all they care about is the pantomime because it is the nuts and berries of the theater industry. Wow. The provincial theater industry is your big Christmas pantomime. So they were going to do one every year. They were going to do like a TV one, and they did Aladdin that year, and then the following year Lee Mack was the lead in Dick Whittington. Yeah. And that's it. They never made any more. So they just kept repeating those two. Wow. And it was like, it was always Christmas to me when I started getting messages on my phone going, say you're Aladdin again. It was always that. And, was that you in Father Ted? That was the other two things that made it Christmas.
Oh, that's great.
Which camera?
Number 2.
Camera's gone? Yeah. Oh, we can wrap that up, and it's perfect timing. Yeah, cool. At Christmas on a little positive to end on. So you want to plug your show?
When is this going out?
We're going to get it out. Get it out tonight.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Today? Well, I'm in Perth tonight. So that's too late for that. But I'm in Sydney Saturday, Sunday. Cool. And then Brisbane for the week after that. Awesome. And then I'm off to New Zealand for a couple of weeks.
Wicked. We've got listeners over there. For us, I got Comedians vs Rappers tonight. But this everything I said next week, May 13th. Up and Joke tour. Oh no, I'm in Karratha next week, and then week after we got the Up and Joke tour, and then my Perth Comedy Fest show, Perth's Most Eligible Bachelor, and I'm on the gala for the first time ever. So perfect. Fucking get around it.
Well done, Delby.
Get around it.
Get around it.
Fucking.
I got nothing to plug except for our show at Up and Joke, May 13th. So what's that? 2 weeks.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
2 weeks tomorrow.
Yep.
Fuck. Better get finished editing those videos.
Yep.
So we got the show there. Tickets are in the bio. That's about it for now.
Cool. Thanks for your time, and good to see you again.
See you on the gram with our collab.
Fuck yeah.
Sick. Perfect.